In 1996, Resident Evil changed the world of gaming by bringing survival horror to the masses, introducing spooky zombies, limited ammo, sparse save points, and of course,
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
and much like with Doom or Tomb Raider, you are bound to end up with companies trying their best to cash in on that success, which leads us to this absolute thing of beauty, Overblood for the PlayStation. Released in 1997 by Ravenhill Soft, aka the same people responsible for the Japanese-only first fully 3D horror game, Dr Hauzer. I suppose I might have to take a look at that one for next year's Halloween video. But anyways, they have brought us Overblood. Marred by middling tank controls, a somewhat clunky story, stiff or non-existent animations, and voice acting that makes Resident Evil look like Kubrick, Overblood is one of my favorite games of all time. My god, do I love this mess. The term "so bad it's good" exists purely for games like this. And what better way to spend the spookiest of seasons than with some B-grade PlayStation cheese? So turn off the lights, crank that sound system, grab a bowl of popcorn, and get ready for some Halloween spooktivity. Suddenly awakened from cryogenic sleep, Raz Carsey, God what a Chad name, finds himself in a cold, silent, and desolate facility. Why he's here, who he is, and what else might be skulking around this iron prison are a complete mystery. In what seems like a futile attempt to escape, Raz decides he might as well try than sit idly as time runs out. Overblood appropriately touts itself as a sci-fi adventure, as it's closer to an uninvited rather than a full-fledged Resident Evil clone, as most of your adventure is focused around solving puzzles. Anything from finding keycards, using an anti-gravity device to hold open steel doors or hop across menacing pits, or pushing boxes to clear a path to a switch. It's about what you'd expect from an adventure game of the era, but this time around with a bit more interactivity. Puzzles maintain a certain simplicity, like oiling a rickety machine as to not explode temperamental chemicals, or small bouts of platforming to reach a small computer terminal. But you'll find that Overblood attempts to flesh out puzzles and gameplay in a few different ways. During your escape, you'll come across a few partners that'll help you out, like Millie, and the show-stealing best robo-buddy around, Peepo.
Why not? Peepo it is.
In certain circumstances, you'll need to switch between your characters to accomplish various tasks to further your journey. On top of that, you also have the fight scenes. More on those in a minute, and a few other gameplay styles like the flying section to break up the monotony. Overblood isn't quite the finest wine on the shelf, and while it might not stand toe-to-toe with graphical big hitters of the era like Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy VII, or Enemy Zero, it does manage to establish an unsettling and foreboding atmosphere. Certain hallways stretch and sprawl, while others contort from decay or destruction. Many rooms radiate a cold and oppressive ambience, and others implement some neat, moody lighting. For example, this room where you traverse the steel girders always makes me uneasy for some reason, like a cavernous, liminal nightmare. Or how about the green glow of the rather spacious vents you have to explore late in the game? It's hard to describe, but the overall lonely and absent aura of the facility is well captured. The game's sparse but eerie OST also helps capture the mood, as lo-fi synth pads and unsettling choir-like voices drone throughout the haunting industrial structure. But for as much as I praise the atmosphere, a lot of it is shattered by the, at times, hilarious animations. I highly recommend seeing as many of the deaths in this game as you can, as nearly all of them are downright laughable. Adding to that is the lack of facial animations, leading to your characters talking without moving their mouths. And my personal favorite has to be the push animation, which can be triggered when there's nothing around to push, and Raz ends up doing his best Stone Cold impression. I also hear Raz is a pretty good dancer. For as much as Overblood tries to stand on its own, there's no denying that Capcom's survival horror paradigm had its influence on this game, with its focus on a fleshed-out, cinematic story taking up a good portion of the game, with minute-long bouts of exposition unfolding in glorious low-poly fashion. This undoubtedly leads to my favorite part of this game, the outstanding voice acting. Alrighty, let's roll some clips.
Halt. You may not proceed beyond this point until sterilization is completed.
Sterilization?
As in decontaminated.
You sure? I may want to have kids someday.
Really?
Don't leave me, people!
That's it, folks. Video games are over. We have reached perfection. The hilarious, cheesy line deliveries found here are up to par with the Jill sandwiches and oh my gods of Resident Evil. So if you've gotten an overt fondness for B-movie grade voice acting, then Overblood is a must-play. I mean, how can you not love this?
Is that all you can say? Beep? What's that supposed to mean? Yeah, beep beep to you too.
Video games are dumb, and I love them. But the elephant in the room is undoubtedly the wretched combat. I can understand that the era of 3D games was in its infancy, so terrible controls are sure to run amok, but my god are the fights in this game a chore. Left with only your fists, unless you want to waste ammo, which, trust me, you don't, you'll find a laborious and clunky fighting system that is not tuned to take on the fast and agile monsters found within. The only upside is that combat rears its ugly head about 5 or 6 times at most. But that last stretch where you have to take on the final boss in multiple successions was a near deal breaker for me. A tip to anyone who wants to play this game, make sure you use a GameFAQ to find all of the ammo clips, you'll want them for that final stretch. Alright, ghouls and gals, is Overblood worth playing? Well, it depends. If you're someone like myself who embraces and enjoys the dumb aspects of video games, isn't afraid of some poorly aged tank controls, and can dig some hilarious voice acting, then Overblood gets a glowing recommendation.
You want a piece of me, freak? Come on!
However, if adventure games, horror, and B-movie schlock don't tickle your fancy, then I can't imagine there's much Overblood can offer you. This is definitely a game that a certain crowd is bound to enjoy, but I can't fault anyone who takes the game at face value for what it is. A poorly aged 3D horror adventure with little to offer in its 3 to 4 hour runtime, which makes it all the more crazy that this game now goes for $50 to $80 online. Look, I love and adore this game, but when I scored my copy, prices were sitting at $15 to $20, which Overblood is certainly worth. For those of you who want to experience this ridiculous game, emulation is a solid way to get your fill of over-the-top PlayStation schlock. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this episode, consider checking out these other videos right here, or even subscribing. Also, if you'd like to throw me a couple of bucks, you can support the show on Patreon.